Marshall scooped that up and ran the length. He finished neatly after a good team move from Wigan for his second try. Then his third try, I'll get to that in a sec, because I want to say Zach Hardacre was fantastic in this game, and Tony Clubb was brilliant for Wigan in this game as well. Highlight moment of this game. You can try and take it away from him, but Marshall's 80-metre break, I mean, regardless of where he tapped it from, okay, it was a thrilling moment. In the stadium, being there watching it, from the terrible vantage point you have as an away fan at that stadium,
because
none of us had any idea that he tapped it 2 metres to the right of the middle hash mark. None of us knew that, okay? So we just thought it was thrilling and brilliant, and he found a massive gap in the slow to organise themselves Wakey defence. Now, some of that came from the tapping it 2 metres in the wrong place. I'm not going to deny that he wasn't a refereeing error and that Liam Marshall didn't do something that he shouldn't have done. I'm not sure how deliberately cheaty it was, if I'm honest with you, because I think if you watch the highlights, if you listen to them with the sound on, just before he taps it, the referee says okay, and that's when he sort of taps it and straightens up, and that pulls him away from the middle of the pitch. So I don't know if that's influenced it, but anyway, it was a mistake by the referee / exploiting a rule that shouldn't have been allowed to be exploited by Liam Marshall. But it was a thrilling moment. And we didn't have a clue, and we loved it on the stands, and the atmosphere it created.
Yeah, of course you did.
It was a hug a stranger moment. It really was. Literally, I hugged a stranger. I mean,
the one thing I would say about it, he definitely didn't tap it in the middle. There's a mark on the pitch there for a reason. Should have been pulled back, blah, blah, blah. Ultimately, though, I think when you look at the highlights, one of the reasons that he got through the middle was that the players was too busy, the Wakefield line was too busy retreating, but they were also too busy pointing it where he should have been tapping it from. If they'd concentrated on moving back and tackling him, it might not have even been a score in the first place. So for me, you are held responsible. You can have a moan as much as you want, but when the player's running at you, you've got to respond, and they didn't respond well enough.
Yeah.
A player shouldn't, even if he taps it from the edge of the pitch or wherever, a player shouldn't break through the middle like that when you've, in those kind of circumstances. It should be exceptional to do that.
Look, to be honest, I can cop it when a coach criticises a match official for making an error. I can cop that. What I can't take is when they exaggerate that mistake by 3 or 4 metres to make it sound far more egregious than it was, because then we're just doing the same thing that the referee did in terms of not realising where he actually tapped it, which was at most 3 metres away from the middle. I'd say 2 to 3 metres, not 6 to 7. So Chris Chester has undermined his credibility by exaggerating the error, in my mind. Even though it was definitely an error, he's right to call it out as an error. He wasn't pinning the blame on the referee for the result of the match.
No.
None of that. So he did it in the okay way, I think. Apart from his language was emotive and a bit stronger than I would like, but it's correct. It was an error that shouldn't have happened. But why exaggerate it to make it sound worse than it was? To me, it's good enough to have said he was 2 metres off the mark.
Yeah. Well, the reason is it's the same reason that McManus, isn't it? It's deflection. His team is under massive pressure now, and they're on a really poor run of form. So, yeah, it's deflection, and it's that feeling of that they're under pressure. So it helps to blame an external factor rather than the fact that your team haven't been playing well for the last 3 months, basically.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of highlight moments as well, if Ben Jones-Bishop did successfully ground his try, because I didn't have a good angle on that, and I've tried to watch it back on the videos and stuff, and I think he did ground it inside.
He's very keen on claiming it, I would say.
I'm not sure. You can't see it great.
No.
You can't see it great, and then the ball sort of spills out, but I'm not sure if that's the Wigan player coming across contacts the ball after he's grounded it, but yeah, if he did finish that was a fantastic piece of play by Morgan Escaray, who made a few errors that helped Wigan get some good field position in this game, but that was his one that was one of two attacking pieces of play that he played in that were highlight moments. The other one was Wakefield's very nice long-range try scored at the end of the first half, which was highlight worthy despite a forward pass in the move that should have been pulled back. That was Tanganoa's offload to Escaré. Now, I was quite close to this in the stands, and it was forward, but the two players were very close to each other. So it was a hard call for the officials on the fly to make, and I'm always in favour of positive, kind of letting the attack flow, even though it annoyed me. If I was Chris Chester, the decision I'd have been flagging up after this game the most was at the end of that try, Zach Hardacre mauled Jacob Miller round his head after missing a tackle, and it should have been. I was worried it was going to be an 8-point try from a Wigan perspective, and I think it should have been. But similarly, Craig Kopchak should have been sent off in the last 2 minutes of this game because he decapitated Tommy Luluai. There was a ton of high shots throughout this game that were not picked up by the match officials. Now, some of them were by Wigan players, certainly. Some of them were on Wigan players. There was one on George Williams where he got clattered round the head and then dragged into touch from about 10 yards away. Great effort from the Wakefield players to force him into touch and not get pulled up for dragging. I don't think they quite dragged. I think they mostly pushed and stuff. They didn't quite lift and that sort of stuff. But they twatted him round the head before, so he didn't know where he was on the pitch. There was a few moments like that, high tackles both ways, that I think they were the things I'd call on the match officials to say, did they get them right, as much as anything else in the game. Yeah. I think it was a fair result, though. Wakefield were not very strong in attack. That kick from Danny Brough that was caught by Liam Marshall in goal was just one of many really poor kicks that they put in, especially in the first half. They didn't get to the kick as well as they should. They were poor in attack in that time. Wigan were good in defence in that time. The better team won for me, but yeah, it was a good game to be at from a fan's point of view. The atmosphere felt fantastic amongst the Wigan fans.
Very good. Yeah, but you march on and up to second.
Yep, standings.
Yeah. So St Helens celebrated their league leaders' shield and are now guaranteed to win that prize by the biggest points margin in Super League history. They currently have 48 points. Wigan are now their closest chasers on 32. Warrington head a group of 3 on 30. Their points difference is plus 191. Salford is plus 177. And Hull FC is minus 75. I think that tells you everything you need to know about Hull FC's season. Castleford sit just outside the top 5 on 28, but with a plus 74 points difference, and a game against Hull, is on the horizon. That's a big one. Catalan in 7th on 26 points are likely out of the reckoning. Well, they're already on holiday out there, on minus 156 points difference. Leeds are next as we move to the relegation battle. They're basically safe on 22 points with a minus 8 points difference. Wakefield lead a 3-team group on 20 points with a points difference of minus 117. Huddersfield is minus 165 and Hull KR are on minus 215. London are bottom, 2 points adrift on 18, and with a league's worst minus 277 on points difference. So all pointing to a tough road for London.
Yeah. Certainly.
Even if they win their game, unless they win it by a bucket load, they're still going to be behind KR.
They've got Hull KR, aren't they? So any win by 20 points is a win by 40 points.
Yeah, and the difference is 60.
Yeah. So they
need to win by 30.
They've got a chance, though. They've got a chance.
They've got they've got to win.
Yeah. You'd feel like they've got to win both games. They are winnable, Hull KR and Wakefield, but these other two teams have got to win those games too, and they are winnable because they're against London. Yeah. What I would say, Ian Watson came out saying this in his post-match interview, talking about we should be talking up how close everything is, how exciting everything is. And yes, Saints have won the League Leaders' Shield at a canter, and everyone could say they've been the only good side this year from that basis. What I would, though, say is just because these other sides have been inconsistent doesn't mean they haven't been good. And it's exciting. And I think a team who's won, a third of their games and a team who's won 2/3 of their games, that's not a huge difference in the realm of teams that have got 20 points at this stage and teams that have got 30 points at this stage. There's 5 wins separating those teams. So when Huddersfield go to Hull and beat Hull, that's not because Hull are shit. That's because Huddersfield did well, and Huddersfield are good enough to be in this competition. Just like, and I know we've talked a lot about all these sides being shit tonight, but just like Hull KR going and doing it to Catalans. Catalans are not a team full of mugs, even if they might be playing like them.
Yeah.
You know, they won the Cup last year. They've got internationals in that side, and they've got former very high-profile internationals in that side. And Hull KR went there and win, and Hull KR have won 10 games. You know, I think it's more the case that there's no terrible teams this year. What there has been is lots of terrible performances. That's true.
Yes.
And Hull FC are a team that's been big guilty of that. I don't think Leeds have been hugely guilty of terrible performances. I think they've been guilty of bad performances. I think Wigan have been guilty of poor performances and good performances and never had amazing performances or terrible performances. I think the same can be said for Castleford, for Wakefield for the most part. Warrington have had some fantastic performances, but not that many, and they've only had a couple of terrible ones. Salford have only had fantastic performances because we expected them to not be as good as they are, but really they've just been really good quite consistently and totally deserve to be where they are in the league table, just like I think Wigan deserve to be where they are, Warrington deserve to be there where they are, Hull and Cass deserve to be where they are. I think it's been an exciting year, and I think what we want is everyone to be able to beat everyone, and we need to stop looking at it like the teams that lose because they're shit. Because we've got a more level playing field here. Most teams are bringing through good young players. Most teams this year signed a slightly better caliber of overseas players, hypothetically, before the season started, or right early on in the season. I think it's been a good season. But everyone looks at it like every team's been shit. I'm away from that standpoint. I'm in a different position to everyone. I think maybe I'm just too glass half full on this. Maybe I've been listening too much to Nate Gladden's Rugby League in America podcast recently.
No such thing. I'd agree with you in many ways. I think what you've got an issue with is consistency with some teams. So Hull FC are the most yo-yo team of the year. Brilliant one week, diabolical the next, which is why their points difference is why it is.
40 plus points, have lost by 40 plus points.
Exactly. So they're the most yo-yo team. Every other team other than St Helens have been consistently good. Everyone else has had levels of inconsistency that has manifested itself more or less often. So London have had moments of brilliance, but they've been much more inconsistent more often. So, and that's why we are where we are in terms of the points difference. You know, some teams started better, like Wakefield, and their inconsistency is kind of built and has led to a poor run. Same with Huddersfield and things like that. But every team has the potential to have a 10 out of 10 week and beat the other team, and we've seen that, haven't we? So certainly at this time of the year, there's no certainties in any of these results, which makes tipping really difficult, as I found this week.
Well, London and Hull KR were the only two teams that didn't have someone in the Great Britain train-on squad. Because there was loads from Saints, there was a few from Wigan, there was loads from Warrington. There was one from Salford, there was a load from Warrington, there was some from Hull, there was some from Cass, there was one from Catalans, there was a couple from Leeds, there was Jerry from Huddersfield, there was Riesling from Wakefield.
Yeah.
So it's just the bottom two.
Yeah.
So that shows everyone's producing or performing with international caliber players. We're going to end up with this thing. I think what we're missing is consistency of intensity in matches. That's kind of the problem. And when Super League was maybe arguably at its best 15 years ago, 12 years ago, that sort of time period, arguably that was when it was best. That's because you had 5 teams who played each other at a high intensity every time they played. Maybe that's not quite been there this year, and that's a bigger argument, because back then we played 26 or 27 fixtures, now we play 29.